The Wild West is a classic American story. The gold rush, cowboys, lawless lands. But the often overlooked point is how we got there. The expansion to the West is one of the major time periods in the history of the U.S. It involved Americans moving westward in order to start a new life or strike it rich. With every major time period, there's triumph. However, there is also tragedy. A major triumph from this westward expansion was all the land which was now under American control, which would mean more resources. This would lead to economic growth for Americans willing to travel west. With the land and economic growth, it would bring more opportunity, which in turn would bring many immigrants to fill and use the land, further increasing the economy. However, the major tragedy was what needed to be done in order to gain this land. In this process of claiming land in western North America, millions of Native Americans and Mexicans were massacred, many times for no reason. Our treatment of the natives during this time was inexcusable. We stole their land, broke treaties made with them, and deprived them of resources they desperately needed. While America became what it is today during this time period, the road we took was one of joy and despair, truths and lies, acceptance and denial, and most importantly, life and death. The area to the west of the Mississippi River did not always belong to America, as all we originally had was the 13 colonies. All of the land to the west of the Appalachian Mountains originally belonged to the natives. This land was then given to us in the Treaty of Paris of 1783, after we won the American Revolution. Of course, the natives were never told of this, and had no say as to what was to happen. Many conflicts between settlers and natives ensued due to differences in culture and ideology. Settlers believed in manifest destiny, which was the belief that Americans were destined by God to expand across North America. They believed that natives were inferiors and were wasting the land that they had. Most conflicts ended horribly for the natives because they weren't able to put up much resistance. Many tribes were destroyed, driven out of the land, or migrated to other tribes further west. There was a struggle to decide which states got the new land, so instead, all of that new land was then available for purchase, and given the permission to become states if big enough. Sometime after 1803, a huge portion of modern-day America was brought from the French in what was known as the Louisiana Purchase. This event is what actually sparked the idea of manifest destiny. This also led to many more natives being driven out of these lands who were starting to run out of space. Shortly after, the War of 1812 broke out between America and the United Kingdom. This was mainly because of the fact that Great Britain were attacking American ships which were trading with France. The war ended with the Treaty of Gat. This is how America gained another piece of land in 1818 with the Red River Basin, which was given to them to settle a few things left out of the Treaty of Gat. The famous Oregon Trail had started in 1811 and kept going to around the 1840s. This was a famous trail because it followed a fur trail in the path to colonizing the new land. With all this land to the west, people needed to inhabit it. Since there wasn't enough people in America to fill the new land, immigrants were the answer to fill up the space. So, this was when the incentivization to go to the west was very high, with the government spending a lot of money to make things easier. For example, they made the land very cheap, used propaganda, and built railroads to connect the west to the east, with some of the railroad connecting most of America being known as the Continental Railroads. This was all in an effort to get people going to these new lands. All this incentivization was needed because of all the natives and Mexicans who were not happy with their land being taken. The next piece of land acquired was Florida, which was gained from Spain in the Florida Treaty in 1819. This was around the time when the Indian Removal Act of 1830 was passed by President Andrew Jackson to move all the natives remaining in America to the west of the Mississippi River. This was inevitably coming, after pushing the natives so far back. Another commonly forgotten thing is that Texas used to belong to Mexico, but had a revolution and decided to join America as the 28th state. This became known as the Texas Annexation, which happened in 1845. After a long while, we finally set the borders where Canada would end and where America would start. This was known as the Oregon Treaty, which was written in 1846. This also gave us a little bit more land. Mexico was none too pleased about Texas, and with land disputes, it was a long time coming for a war. So shortly after in 1846, the American-Mexican War started, and ended in 1848 with American victory. This gave America even more land, being given in what is known as the Treaty of Guadalupe. This was around the time when the famous gold rush started, and boosted colonization to America even more than it previously was, with massive immigration toward California and surrounding areas on the belief of riches. This was much needed in the ever-growing amount of land gained, and the people needed to fill it. After the Mexican-American War in 1854, the Gadsden Purchase was finalized, in which America bought 29,670 square miles of Mexico for about $10 million, creating the modern-day border between Mexico and America. The last two pieces of land to enter as states were Alaska in 1867, which was bought from Russia, and Hawaii in 1898, which was obtained to be used as a strategic point against the Spanish to be used in the Spanish-American War. That concludes the whole transition of America due to westward expansion. All of this expanding was a huge triumph for America due to all of the land gained, as well as all the people and culture that was gained from the immigrants that make America what it is today. However, the tragedy of this is what we did in order to become the superpower we are today. The countless amount of people slaughtered, the massive amount of land stolen, the amount of lives changed for the worst. All of this was our doing. What we did was inexcusable, and the debt we owe to Native Americans is almost unpayable. However, we must also learn to live with our atrocities, and most importantly, learn from them.